Alright, hi. Subcourse QM5202 Edition A, Batching and Scheduling, Aipd, Readiness Professional through Growth, Army Institute Professional Development, Army Correspondence Course Program. I got this also of arrivalebooks.com. Introduction. In today's Army, our mission is to provide the right amount of fuel at the right place, right time, meet all the requirements of the internal and external fuel operation. Imperatives to conduct environmental assessment. Prior to the beginning of fuel operations, the unit environmental officer coordinates with the EPA representatives and the unit petroleum officer with the environmental regulators to make the assessment of the petroleum operation. The assessment is used to determine how the petroleum operation will affect the wildlife, local pollution, which with the unit area of the operation environmental compliance office uses the results for the assessment to verify whether or not the petroleum operation is an initiative effective AIW that drives environmental compliance. The environmental officer works with the following personnel: environmental compliance officer, the EPA officer, and the unit petroleum officer. Environmental regulators, as with any other unit, the environmental officer must emphasize spill prevention. The unit environmental officer is responsible for knowing and governing spill contingency plan, the installation policy of the CONUS policy, the OCONUS policy, the host nation policy relevant to the rear in which the petroleum operation will be conducted. The quartermaster corps is tasked in the providing fuel support deployments such as the Desert Storm, Desert Shield, Bright Star, JRTC, NTC, numerous humanitarian assistance operations, in each of the deployment either by single product, multi-product, fuel product, were dispensed in sort of the support of the petroleum fuel operations. The petroleum NCOIC, petroleum OIC are often thought as some of the most insignificant players when it comes to being in a planning field training exercise. Major deployments often then even left out of the initial planning phase. The bottom line, they are subject matter experts. The petroleum officer is more knowledgeable. You have the easier way to will be trained for the subordinates to perform their daily mission. It is imperative that the subordinates under the supervision understand the responsibility under the Army Environmental Stewardship Program. Your soldiers are definitely needed to be educated in the event that there is some type of fuel spill. Generally, when the defueling of the fuel spills, one of the biggest problems containment is your responsibility to ensure each one of the soldiers is able to apply environmental awareness techniques. So the soldier must be able to make sound decisions that will not cause harm or damage to training site, deployment area. In the event of the fuel spill, every measure of effort must be taken to ensure that the spill is properly contained and cleaned up. Remember, accurate records and reports on receipts and storage and shipments of the petroleum products must be maintained at all times. The lesson has been broken down into 6 sections. The first section will receive information on the terms, definitions associated with batching, scheduling, and procedures. You will also receive information about dispatchers and their responsibilities. The second section, we will receive information on batching procedures. In the third section, you will receive information about consumption graphs. Section 4 gives information about a monthly pipeline schedule. In Section 5, you will receive information about graphic progress charter. And finally, in the 6th section, you receive information about daily pumping orders. Terms here are some of the terms and definitions you encounter in this lesson. Pipeline. The multiple product pipeline means that the more one type of the grade of the product can be pumped through a single pipe. Forecast a pipeline plan schedule for the products to be pumped. The schedule, monthly, weekly, or daily plan deliveries into the one outline of the pipeline is some of the point connected with the pipeline. Dispatching, the act of controlling the pipe operation. The IAW forecast schedule. The dispatcher, a person responsible for the scheduling of the movement of the product for the pipeline. Chief Dispatcher, the person who controls operations, the scheduling, movement of the product of the pipeline. The Chief Dispatcher is usually located at the Petroleum Pipeline Terminal Operating Battalion Petroleum Group Headquarters. District Dispatcher controls the pipeline operation. The District IAW instruction for the Chief Dispatcher Office. The Dispatcher Office is located at the Petroleum Pipeline Terminal Operating Company. The Shift Dispatcher is responsible for control of the pipeline. Name of the dispatcher, for example, the Chief of the District, depending on the office assigned with it being worked. The shift. The batch is a specified quantity type of the product pumped into the pipeline. J, the batching, the sequence in which 2 or more products are being pumped, introduced through the products into the pipeline in a sequence that results in less formation of interface in the material. K, interface, the mixing and coupling commonly between the adjacent products in the multiple product pipeline. L, cut, product withdrawn from the pipeline routed into the tankage. M, the stripping, split, streaming is the process of drawing off the part of the total product batch into intermediate terminal tanks. 2. The Chief Dispatcher function. Now that you have become familiar with the terms related to the batching and scheduling, you will now be responsible to coordinate with the Chief Dispatcher. A Chief Dispatcher is responsible for knowing the following: 1. The capacity of storage of each of the storage location connected to the pipeline line of the pipeline line fill of the pipeline and be throughout the put for each section of the pipeline. Working pressure for each section of this pipeline, maximum discharge pressure that each of the pump stations can develop, number of location of each of the pump stations, 5, stock and status, daily requirements to the chief dispatcher and his office must also determine, coordinate, and perform the following. 1, type of the quantity of product to be pumped, destination of each batch, interface size and estimated arrival times, interface of the pump station and terminals. 4, starting and stopping times, all pumping operations, pump and stop station pressures and flow rate. 6, type of the cup to be made with each of the product interface. 7, the development of monthly and daily schedules. 8, and the related daily pumping orders to the district dispatchers. 9, the base required base for the orderly reports for the pumping station terminals to be made must be maintained. Records must be maintained on the quantity of fuel batched into the pipeline delivered to location along the pipeline, quantity remaining in the pipeline, quantity of fuel loss. Information must be reported daily to the higher headquarters, for example, the HHC or the QM Petroleum or Water. The chief dispatcher also has the scheduling and dispatching section, and the sections are responsible for preparing a monthly pipeline schedule number to the operational schedule used to control the pipeline, ensuring that all the pump operations are started and stated, adjusted and stopped when to do so. And the dispatching section is also responsible for issuing orders to the dispatcher. 3, the dispatcher function. The dispatcher controls the pumping operation of the district according to the instruction of the chief dispatcher of the district. Dispatcher has certain freedoms to action of emergency. The district dispatcher emergency responsibility is follows. To isolate affected section in the case of a line break, divert the upstream pumping into an empty storage tank in order and line and shut down. C, to inform the chief dispatcher office of all the shutdowns, identify the shutdown section and take action. 4, shift dispatcher function. Shift dispatcher function are responsible for control of the active of the chief of the district dispatcher during their work and shift. 5, batch schedules. A product likely to be batched in the military. Multiple product pipelines primarily include mogas, diesel fuel, and jet fuels. Products such as kerosene have been used to buffer at some times in some of the pipeline operations, but in most cases, but it's not common practice for use in the military system. Batch sequences are not fixed, however, the batches should be arranged to protect critical products and product interfaces that can be used in addition, creating user interface with the batching schedule to use and also aid the quality and quantity control. See products related to the adjacent descending ascending order of the quality. Gravity products must be closely related to the quality, have at least the difference in gravity between the sequencing and the first schedule light products, then heavier products. Products that interface with the spread less than with the distance. The interface lengthens quickly at first and starts downstream in the pipeline. About 65% of the interface will occur with the first 20% of the pipeline distance. 2, the products are more easily disposed in one both adjacent fuels, and the method of batching simplifies quality and surveillance. 6, the interface of the small mixture of the 2 adjacent products. The product cuts and then used with the dealing with the interface with the multiple product pipeline. A number of the factors must be considered when making such cuts. Interface sizes can be reduced, and maintaining a pumping rate needed to keep the heaviest product in turbulent flow by keeping the lines pressurized during a shutdown. 7, the batch designation. The product of the batches are identified by the use of the standard identification system. The system identification of the quality product and the product batch and the quantity. The product code number that is the first part of the numerical batch is designated one of the following codes that are commonly used: mogas 1, jet fuel 2, diesel 3, or JP4, JP5, JP8 for jet fuel. Other products would be assigned with the continuing numbers by the dispatcher. A batch number forms the second part of the identification number by the numbers assigned that the first official year, beginning with the number 1 of the dispatch and end of the fuel. For example, the 26 represents the 60th batch of the jet fuel for the official year. The dispatcher may elect to run the batch numbered in sequence regardless of the product. For example, the 2, 61, 61, 2, 62. The third number used to represent the size of the quantity for the batch, and the MBBLs. Note that the M2 2 MBBLs equals 20 MBBLs represents 20,000 barrels. Example 24020 equals JP8, 40th batch, consisting of the 20,000 barrels. Detection of batch changes of the control product of the pipeline must be determined with one batch at the end and another batch begins. The following methods are used. Gravity difference of the API specific gravity between the two products will identify the change of the product. Color change when the color due to the lead. The difference of the difference products may be determined. Liquid buffers or products such as mogas may be used to separate the different products. Physical buffers, an object such as a pig or a scraper or a ball placed in the line to cut down on the interface die plug. A color injected into the line to separate the line products belonging to different customers. Disposing of the interface, there are three alternatives to disposing an interface. The alternatives are as follows. A, the interface mixture is cut into one or other adjacent products, a head or tail interface cut. B, the mixture is divided in between two adjacent products, usually with a mid-gravity point. C, the whole interface is taken into the slope tank being blended into the later time. Note that this procedure is used in the commercial industry, but is not in practice in a military system. Two type of the cuts. There are four types of cuts can be made. See figure 1. You have the fuel bay, heart cut, interface tail cut, interface center cut, the interface head cut, and the heart cut. Shows the fuel B with the interface with the pipeline wall and the fuel A with the pipeline wall. Interface head cut may be made at the front end of the interface, the last gravity of the pure product, the interface midpoint and center point. Center cut approximately midpoint gravity between the two adjacent products. For example, the JP4 being pushed in by the MOGAS of the last API gravity of the JP are corrected to 60 degrees at 53.8 was pure at MOGAS, corrected at 56.4 degrees. The midpoint between the observed API gravity at 2.6 degrees to determine the mid-cut point cut divided by the 2.6 of that by 2 by adding the result of 553.8, or for example 2.6 divided by 2 is 1/3. The 53.8 plus 1/3 is 53.5 and 1. The midpoint cut is 55.1 degrees API between the JP Ford MOGAS and the MOGAS. Interface tail cut made in the last interface mixture between before the pure product cut. D, the heart cut, pure product cut made before and after the interface. 3, determining the time of the cut, the type of the batch determine the time of the make of the cut. The line sampling station will be located before the manifold to allow the product to be cut and made under the normal flow. Determining the length of the interface required the following data: the interface arrival start time, interface passage time, end time, total elapsed time between the starting and end time, the pumping rate per minute. Example, the interface arrives at the pump starting at 9:30 and then passes the pump station at 20:05. The pumping relates to 22,000 barrels per hour. 60 minus 30 is 30 minutes. 30 plus 5 is 35 minutes. 93, 1900 and a half hour, 19 hours and 30 past the 2005, the 35 minutes on the interface pass. The 2200 BML per hour is at 60 times equals 36.666 equals 36.7 barrels per minute. Total interface 35 times 36.7 is 1,284.5 barrels per minute, barrels per large. Or 10, product pumping rate. The product pumping rate is determined based on the quantity of the product batched into the pipeline each of the hour. The pumping rate is the flour. The pumping rate is further verified with the reports of the pumping station along the pipeline and receiving the location the batch arrives. Example, the batch of 2,200 barrels of the product is started with the pipeline at 0-100. The product batching is completed at 200. The batching of this product pipeline is required 1 hour. The determining flow rate per hour divided in the quantity by the times is 22,000 barrels divided by 1 hour is 22,000 barrels per hour. Due to the volumes handled with the pipeline, we refer to the rates and flow quantities in the MBLBL. For example, 22,000 barrels is divided by 1,000 equals to 2 barrels. Knowing the rate and product of the flow arrival time, determine each of the pump station and terminals notified of the expected arrival time. Pipeline operation planning purposes for 20 minus hour days. Allows 20 hours for the pump, the 4 hours for the maintenance during the 24-hour day. The actual pumping day will depend on the number of the factors. For example, the control area along the pipeline, the rear capability, and the security. The consumption graph. The dispatcher office maintains the consumption graph of each of the product handled with the location in the area with the responsibility. See figure 1. For example, the chief dispatcher keeps consumption graphs for each of the product at each of the storage point. District dispatchers keep the graphs for the storage locations in the area of the responsibility. Terminals keep the graphs for a large volume of the users to show the total available barrels. The consumption graphs are available, showing present and projected stockage. Should a trend of the consumption suddenly increase, decrease, the graph must show the total barrels of the product at the storage point. The total barrels plotted on the graph must be adjusted by the taken in, taken out of the or placed into the surface. For example, the tank cleaning, allowing the vapor space, the calculated with the 5% the total availability storage capacity when the tank is out of service. You can not count on the storage capacity. For example, the total storage of the X product at the Y location is 70 meters per 70 barrels per minute at 70,000 barrels for each of the 10,000, 7 each of the 10,000 barrel storage tanks. That for the 95% fill capacity is 66.5 barrels per minute for to allow the 5% for vapor space. Figure 1-2 shows the consumption graph. Example: to solve the vapor space, you must multiply the vapor space the number of the Mike's barrels. Vapor space with the 5% will equal the 0.5 the vapor space by the 80 Mike barrels. Of the 80 times 0.5 is 4 Mike barrels. Graph is plotted with the monthly period issued with the showing of the starting of the 0, 100, 1 after 0, 100 hours, one day at 0, 100 hours. For the next diagonal line, the receipt is plotted for the end of the day, the vertical line from the issue line. D, the plotting of the projected issued receipts of the complete monthly period shown with the dotted line. The actual issues, the receipt is plotted with the solid line. Note that by the graph, the anticipated with the actual issues and receipts, the dispatcher can see what the adjustment needed to be made. The safety level shown at the bottom of the graph, the safety level number, the DOS, is established by the theater command, with the safety levels are based on the previous monthly total daily issue, divided by the number of the days on during the issue spending. This then multiplied by the DOS required by the theater. Example: 150 Mike barrels fuel were used during the last month field training exercise. The month consisting of 30 days, the safety level was 4 DOSs. The 150 Mike barrels divided by 30 is 5 Mike barrels. 5 Mike barrels times 4 equals 20 Mike barrels. For the safety level of 20 Mike barrels, for the monthly pipeline schedule, the monthly pipeline schedule shall be programmed the movements of the said pipeline product with the quantities required during the 30-day period. The schedule will show the product in which the products will in the pipeline, as well as the time determining how long it will take the product to reach its destination. The monthly schedule is merely the graph that shows the line of capacity in the barrels. Distance plotted against the time and the hours the pipeline is depicted with the graph. The number of the hours the pipeline is used to each of the days must be determined. A pipeline could be operated for the use of the maximum of 4 hours per day. For example, the 20-hour per day period starting at 1 after 0, hours, ending at 2000 hours will allow for the 4 hours maintenance for the military pipeline system. Line fill was shown on the left-hand vertical scale with the location terminals. Base intermediate head pump stations are located within their fill distance downstream of the base terminal. The product batch, the identification of line fill park with the graph indicated with the beginning and the end points. The time plotted with the horizontal axis. Each day begins with a 0, 100 hour, or 1 past 0, 100 hours and ends at 2000 hours. There, however, the demand of the product is high and pumping could continue for 24 hours. To determine the product location of the pipeline time distance is involved. Figure 1-5 shows the monthly pipeline schedule. Examples: batch 2, your gas is batch 2, the 20 barrels to the 10 is batched at 700 mail. 700 hours. The pipeline is intermediate terminal with the 20 Mike barrel for the pumping rate of the 22 barrels per hour. Taking the line fill, which is 20 Mike barrels divided by the 2 Mike barrels. This lets you know the product started with the pipeline within 10 hours to arrive at the head terminal. Take the 10 hours added to your start time at 700 hours. The last known time is lets you know about that. Lets you know that the 1700 hours of your fuel that you reach the terminal to. Find out how many hours it will take the batch to just pass. Take the Mike barrels of the batch and divide it with the pumping rate to add the number of the hours of the to get the head of the terminal. For example, we found that it took 10 hours. So, for example, we will take a batch of 2, 20, 10. Since we know that we have 10 Mike barrels, this becomes the underlining Mike barrel. We divided by the number of the pumping rate 2 Mike barrels, which gives us 5 hours. When added the 5 hours to our 1700 hours, we give us the grand total of 2200 for the batch to pass. Note: you must always know the pumping rate. Examples: knowing the product is started with the pipeline, knowing the quantities placed into the pipeline can determine the time of the total batch is placed in the pipeline, starting at 16 Mike barrels of the jet fuel into the pipeline at 1 past 0, 100 hours, pumping in at 2 Mike barrels with the last batch is placed into the pipeline at 800 hours, shutting down the pipeline with the scheduled maintenance for the 2 as the unscheduled reason for the sabotage, pressure loss, the damage. Loss does not stop at the time for the continuing to pass. Notice the shutdown indicated with the dotted line with the point of the time the shutdown take place. If the shutdown affects the completeness of the pipeline, the dotted line will extend to the base of the head of the terminal. The time shutdown shutting started the second dotted line and at the bottom of the bottom of the point of the time the pumping operation start up again, and the shutdown effects only in the part of the pipeline. This part indicated with the dotted line indicated the part of the time and shutdown affects the pipeline between the space and the intermediate terminal. Then only the product is being pumped out of the intermediate terminal. The head terminal is affected with with the horizontal dotted line on the graph showed the intermediate terminals between the shutdown start time and the time where the start begins. The G, the striping occurs with the flow. There's a split between the terminal and pipeline. The product with the push up with the pipeline, the terminal along with the pipeline. Product is received into the terminal while at the same time it continues to follow up in the pipeline. No stripping action is indicated with the dotted line showing the location and period of the time that the stripping action is taken place. The stripping takes place. The place of the product flow changes is the rate of the flow prior to the point of the stripping starts at 2 mic barrels. The flow rate with the pointing of the stripping on the path is reduced to the halving during the period of stripping occurs. Examples: pumping 10 mic barrels of product prior to stripping requires 5 hours of batch to pass. Given the point of the same, the batch during the stripping has flows rate reduced to approximately half. The flow rate is now 1 mic barrel, not 2 mic barrels, which lengthens the time of the 10 hours. In case 13 graphic progress chart. The graphic progress chart shows in figure 1.4 shows the position of the batches, the progress in their pipeline. The chart is prepared 1 day in advance for what is to be in the pipeline at the beginning of the new pumping day. What is the schedule into the pump into the pipeline on the day. New day, the chart is constructed primarily the same. The monthly schedule is exemption, but taking the cover of 24 hours. A, the line fuel terminal pump station is shown of the horizontal axis across the top. The line fuel showed the right of the midpoint located at the base terminal. B, the schedule input shown with the left midpoint beginning with the point of the input with the base terminal with the other locations at the scheduled input time. Input time is shown on the left of the input location. All products input with the represented dotted lines. The dotted lines represent the point of the product crosses at the start of the location. Once the batch crosses the location, it was represented by a solid line. Figure 1.4 shows the graphic progress chart. 14 daily pumping order. There's no described format for the pumping order. However, there should be written in such a manner that personally work on the pipeline is understanding exactly when some how is to happen. Figure 1.5 sample there is how few general guidelines for using the preparing to order. Show the time chronologically in sequence. For example, 1 past 0 hours for the 2400 hours. The definite times, the specific actions show the arrival times, and the interface show each terminal for the base of the first terminal through the intermediate terminals and any pump station the head of last terminal. So you give the specific order for the respective terminal stations to state other brief and clearly designate all the products by batch number, specific amount of products to be handled by the interface cuts. And remember, the simplicity of the most important factor is the key to success. Figure 1.5 shows the sample format of the daily pumping order. 100 hours base terminal pumping station 1-2 intermediate terminal pump station 3-4 terminal head terminal 800 hours base terminal pump station 7 pump 2 section station intermediate terminal pump station 3 and 4 head terminal and 1600 hours base terminal 1800 hours intermediate terminal and head terminal. Example: the daily pumping hour date July 3rd. Base terminal 1 past 0 hours being patched at 1,667 mo gas in the pipeline of 3 hours. Total product of the batch is 1 minus 67 the mic barrels of 6 mic barrels, eaching 300. At 300 hours, beginning pumping the 250 jet fuel into the pipeline for the 7 hours of the total product batch of the 2 minus divided by 50. That's 2 minus 50 is equal to 7 mic barrels. 1,000 being pumped into the batch 168, the 68th batch of MoGas into the pipeline in 6 hours. The total product of the batch is 1 at 68, 12 mic barrels of 1,600 hours being pumped at batch 3 to 52 diesel into the pipeline in 4 hours. Total product batch to 3 minus 52, 8 mic barrels intermediate terminal, 08 pipeline static with the intermediate through the head terminal line static at 0800 hours through 2000 hours. 0800 being receiving the batch of 249 jet fuel into the terminal for 5 hours. 1,300 hours beginning receive with the batch 166 mo gas in the terminal for the 4 hours. 1,700 hours beginning receive with the batch of 356 diesel fuel into the terminal until shutdown in 2,000 hours. Head terminal 1 past 0 hours receiving the batch of 162 mo gas in terminal for 4 hours. 400 hours beginning receive with the batch 354 for the dispatch into the terminal units until shutdown in 0 hours. The pump station at 1 past 0 hours. Pump station number 1 bringing the station online with the suction pressure of the 20 psi received and link representation station going online at 20 psi suction pressure. Note all the stations report and timeline suction discharge pressure. Station will report hourly on the ADO station operation procedures. The 0800 pump station number 4 will give off the line. Pump station 3 will go offline due to the high pressure of the idle pumps. The IAW standard of operation procedure pack line condition position. Note the report of the offline time of the IAW standing operation procedure. 2000 hours, pump station 1 and 2 will go offline. AIW's standard operation procedure will pack the line in condition. Note the product received the arrival time and approximately. Note the location will conduct the line sampling 15 minutes prior to the expected interface. Note 3, the interface cut disposition responsibility for the terminal commander is not directed by this order. The orders of all locations of the pipeline are listed in the daily pumping order for the going online and offline. The local standard operation procedure should detail the procedure for the operation. And I believe that will conclude the batching schedule of the Aipd Edition A QM 5202 Army Correspondence Program Petroleum Books. First one.